It's 23rd of March, Thursday, and it is chapter 16 of The Last Battle by C.S. Lewis. Farewell to Shadowlands. If one could run without getting tired, I don't think one would often want to do anything else. But there might be special reasons for stopping, and it was a special reason which made Eustace presently shout, "I say, study, look what we are coming to." And well he might, for now they saw before them Cauldron Pool, and beyond the pool the high, unclimbable cliffs, and, pouring down the cliffs, thousands of tons of water every second, flashing like diamonds in some places and dark, glassy green in others, the great waterfall, and already the thunder of it was in their ears. "Don't stop! Farther up and farther in," called Farsight, tilting his flight a little upwards. "It's all very well for him," said Eustace, but Jewel also cried out, "Don't stop! Farther up and farther in. Take it in your stride." His voice could only just be heard above the roar of the water, but next moment everyone saw that he had plunged into the pool and helter-skelter behind. Him, with splash after splash, all the others did the same. The water was not bitingly cold as all of them, and especially Puzzle expected, but of a delicious foamy coolness. They all found they were swimming straight for the waterfall itself. "This is absolutely crazy," said Eustace to Edmund. "I know, and yet," said Edmund. "Isn't it wonderful?" said Lucy. "Have you noticed? One can feel afraid even if one wants to. Try it." "By Jove, neither one can," said Eustace after he had tried. Jewel reached the foot of the waterfall first, but Tyrion was only just behind him. Jill was lost, so she could see the whole thing and better than the others. She saw something white moving steadily up the face of the waterfall. That white thing was the unicorn. You couldn't tell whether he was swimming or climbing, but he moved on higher and higher. The point of his horn divided the water just above his head, and it cascaded out in two rainbow-colored streams all around his shoulders. Just behind him came King Tyrion. He moved his legs and arms as if he were swimming, but he moved straight upwards, as if one could swim up the wall of a house. What looked funniest was the dogs. During the gallop, they had not been at all out of breath, but now, as they swarmed and wriggled upwards, there was plenty of spluttering and sneezing among them. That was because they would keep on barking, and every time they barked, they got their mouths and noses full of water. But before Jill had time to notice all these things fully, she was doing up the waterfall herself. It was the sort of thing that would have been quite impossible in our world. Even if you hadn't been drowned, you would have been smashed to pieces by the terrible weight of water against the countless jacks of rock. But in that world you could do it. You went on up and up, with all kinds of reflected lights flashing at you from the water, and all manner of colored stones flashing through it, till it seemed as if you were climbing up light himself, and always higher and higher, till the sense of height would have terrified you, if you could be terrified. But here it was only gloriously exciting. And then at last one came to the lovely, smooth green curve in which the water poured over the top, and found that one was out of the level river above the waterfall. The current was racing away behind you, but you were such a wonderful swimmer that you could make headway against it. Soon they were all on the bank, dripping but happy. A long valley opened ahead, and great snow mountains, now much nearer, stood up against the sky. Farther up and farther in, cried Jewel, and instantly they were off again. They were out of Narnia now, and up into the western wild, which neither Tyrion nor Peter nor even the eagle had even seen before, but the Lord Diggory and the Lady Polly had. "Do you remember? Do you remember?" they said, and said it in steady voices too, without panting, though the whole party was now running faster than an arrow flies. "What, Lord?" said Tyrion. "Is it then true, as stories tell, that you two journeyed here on the very day the world was made?" "Yes," said Diggory, "and it seems to me that it seems to me as if it were only yesterday." "And on a flying horse?" asked Tyrion. "Is that part true?" "Certainly," said Diggory. But the dog barked, "Faster, faster!" So they ran faster and faster, till it was more like flying than running, and even the eagle overhead was going no faster than they. And they went through Winding Alley, and they went through Winding Valley, and they went through Winding Valley, after Winding Valley, and up the steep sides of hills, and faster than ever down the other sides, following the river, and sometimes crossing it, and skimming across mountain lakes, and if they were living speed boats, till at last at the far end of one long lake, which looked as blue as a turquoise, they saw a smooth green hill. Its sides were as steep as the sides of a pyramid, and round the very top of it ran a green wall. But above the wall rose the branches of trees, whose leaves looked like silver, and their fruit like gold. Farther up and farther in roared the unicorn, and no one held back. They charged straight at the foot of the hill, and then found themselves running up it, almost as water from a broken wave runs up a rock out at the point of some bay. Though the slope was no less steep as the roof of a house, and the grass was smooth as a bowling green, no one slipped. Only when they had reached the very top did they slow up. That was because they found themselves facing great golden gates. and for a moment none of them was bold enough to try if the gates would open. They all felt just as they had felt about the fruit. Dare we? Is it right? Can it be meant for us? But while they were standing thus, a great horn, wonderfully loud and sweet, blew from somewhere inside that walled garden, and the gates swung open. Tyrion stood holding his breath and wondering who would come out. And what came out was the last thing he had expected. A little, sleek, bright-eyed talking mouse with a red feather stuck in a circlet on his head, and its left paw resting on a long sword. It bowed, a most beautiful bow, and said in its shrill voice, "Welcome in the lion's name. Come farther up and farther in." Then Tyrion saw King Peter and King Edmund and Queen Lucy rush forward to heel down and greet the mouse, and they all cried out, "Rippy cheap!" And Tyrion breathed fast with the sheer wonder of it, for now he knew that he was looking at one of the great heroes of Narnia, Rippy Cheep the mouse, who had fought at the great battle of Bevuna and afterwards sailed to the world's end with King Caspian, the seafarer. But before he had had much time to think of this, he felt two strong arms thrown about him and felt a bearded kiss on his cheeks and heard a well-remembered voice sighing, "What, lad? Art thicker and taller since I last touched thee?" It was his own father, the good King Erlian, but not as Tyrion had seen him last when they brought him home pale and wounded from his fight with the giant, nor even as Tyrion remembered him in his later years when he was a great-headed warrior. This was his father, young and merry, as he could just remember him from very early days, when he himself had been a little boy playing games with his father in the castle garden of Cair Paravel, just before bedtime on summer evenings. The very smell of the bread and milk he used to have for supper came back to him. Joel thought to himself, "I will leave them to talk for a little, and then I will go and greet the good King Erlian. Many a bright apple has he given me when I was but a colt." But next moment he had something else to think of, for out of the gateway there came a horse so mighty and noble that even a unicorn might feel shy in its presence, a great winged horse. It looked a moment at the Lord Diggory and the Lady Polly, and neighed out, "What, cousins?" And they both shouted, "Fletch, good old Fletch," and rushed to kiss it. But by now the mouse was again urging them to come in. So all of them passed in through the golden gates into the delicious smell that blew towards them out of that garden, and into the cool mixture of sunlight and shadow under the trees, walking on springy turf that was all dotted with white flowers. The very first thing which struck everyone was that the place was far larger than it had seemed from outside. But no one had time to think about that, for people were coming up to meet the newcomers from every direction. Everyone you had ever heard of, if you knew the history of these countries, seemed to be there. There was Glimfeather the Owl and Puddleglum the Marsh Wiggle, the King William the Disenchanted, and his mother, the Star's daughter, and his great father Caspian himself, and close beside him were the Lord Drinian and the Lord Byrne, and Trumpkin the Dwarf, and Truffle Hunter the Good Badger, with Glenstorm the Centaur, and 100 other heroes of the great war of deliverance. And then from other side came Cor, the king of Archenland, and with King Lune, his father, and his wife Queen Aravis, and the brave Prince Corin Thunderfist, his brother, and Bree the horse, and Hwin the mare, and then, which was a wonder beyond all wonders to Tyrion, there came from farther away in the past the two good beavers and Tumnus the fawn, and there was greeting and kissing and handshaking, and old jokes revived. You've no idea how good an old joke sounds when you take it out again after a rest of 500 or 600 years. And the whole company moved forward to the center of the orchard, where the phoenix sat in a tree and looked down upon them all, and at the foot of that tree were 2 thrones, and in those 2 thrones a king, a queen, so great and beautiful that everyone bowed down before them. And well they might, for these 2 were King Frank and Queen Helen, from whom all the most ancient kings of Narnia and Archenland are descended. And Tyrion felt as you would feel if you were brought before Adam and Eve in all their glory. About half an hour later, or it might have been 100 years later, for time there is not like time here, Lucy stood with her dear friend, her oldest Narnian friend, the fawn Tumnus, looking down over the wall of that garden and seeing all Narnia spread out below. But when you looked down, you found that this hill was much higher than you had thought. It sank down with shining cliffs, thousands of feet below them, and trees, and that lower world looked no bigger than grains of green salt. Then she turned inward again and stood with her back to the wall and looked at the garden. "I see," she said at last, thoughtfully. "I see now. This garden is like the stable. It is far bigger inside than it was outside." "Of course, daughter of Eve," said the fawn. "The farther up and the farther in you go, the bigger everything gets. The inside is larger than the outside." Lucy looked hard at the garden and saw that it was not really a garden at all, but a whole world, with its own rivers and woods and sea and mountains, but they were not strange. She knew them all. "I see," she said. "This is still Narnia, and more real and more beautiful than the Narnia down below, just as it was more real and more beautiful than the Narnia outside the stable door. I see. World within world, Narnia within Narnia." "Yes," said Mr. Tumnus, "like an onion, except that you go, except that as you go in and in, each circle is larger than the last." And Lucy looked this way and that, and soon found that a new and beautiful thing had happened to her. Whatever she looked at, however far away it might be. Once she had fixed her eyes steadily on it, became quite clear and close, as if she were looking through a telescope. She could see the whole southern desert, and beyond it the great city of Tashban. To eastward she could see Cape Paravel on the edge of the sea, and the very window of the room that had once been her own. And far out to sea she could discover the islands, island after island, to the end of the world, and beyond the end the huge mountain which they had called Aslan's country. But now she saw that it was part of a great chain of mountains which ringed round the whole world. In front of her it seemed to come quite close. Then she looked to her left and saw what she took to be a great bank of brightly colored cloud, cut off from them by a gap. But she looked harder and saw that it was not a cloud at all, but a real lamp. And when she had fixed her eyes on one particular spot of it, she at once cried out, "Pizza! Edmund, come and look, come quickly." And they came and looked, for their eyes also had become like hers. "Why," exclaimed Pizza, "it's England, and that's the house itself, Professor Kirk's old home in the country where all our adventures began." "I thought that house had been destroyed," said Edmund. "So it was," said the Faun, "but you are now looking at the England within England. The real England, just as this is the real Narnia. And in that inner England no good thing is destroyed." Suddenly they shifted their eyes to another spot, and then Peter and Edmund and Lucy gasped with amazement and shouted out and began waving, for there they saw their own father and mother waving back at them across the great deep valley. It was like when you see people waving at you from the deck of a big ship when you are waiting on the quay to meet them. "How can we get at them?" said Lucy. "That's easy," said Mr. Tumnus. "That country and this country, all the real countries, are only spurs jutting out from the great mountains of Aslan. We have only to walk along the ridge, upward and inward till it joins on. And listen, there is King Frank's horn. We must all go up." And soon they found themselves all walking together, and a great bright procession it was, up towards mountains higher than you could see in this world, even if they were there to be seen. But there was no snow on those mountains. There were forests and green slopes and sweet orchards and flashing waterfalls, one above the other, going up forever. And the land they were walking on grew narrower all the time. And the land they were walking on grew narrower all the time, with a deep valley on each side. And across that valley the land which was the real England grew nearer and nearer. The light ahead was growing stronger. Lucy saw that a great series of many-colored cliffs led up in front of them like a giant staircase. And then she forgot everything else, because Aslan himself was coming, leaping down from cliff to cliff like a living cataract of power and beauty. And the very first person whom Aslan called and the very first person whom Aslan called to him was Puzzle the donkey. You never saw a donkey look feebler and sillier than Puzzle did as he walked up to Aslan, and he looked beside Aslan as small as a kitten looked beside a Saint Bernard. The lion bowed down his head and whispered something to Puzzle, at which his long ears went down. But then he said something else, at which the ears perked up again. The humans couldn't hear what he had said either time. Then Aslan turned to them and said, "You do not yet look so happy as I mean you to be." Lucy said, "We're so afraid of being sent away, Aslan, and you have sent us back into our own world so often." "No fear of that," said Aslan. "Have you not guessed?" Their hearts leaped, and a wild hope rose within them. "There was a real railway accident," said Aslan softly. "Your father and mother and all of you are, as you used to call it in the Shadowlands, dead. The term is over. The holidays have begun. The dream is ended. This is the morning." And as he spoke, he no longer looked to them like a lion. But the things that began to happen after that were so great and beautiful that I cannot write them. And for us, this is the end of all the stories, and we can most truly say that they all lived happily ever after. But for them it was only the beginning of the real story. All their life in this world and all their adventures in Narnia had only been the cover and the title page. Now, at last, they were beginning chapter 1 of the great story, which no one on earth had read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is better than the one before. Oh, this is India, karmic country. I bought this book almost by accident in a bookshop. It was first book I found. I didn't want to go out without a book, and I found this, and I also found another and another. But actually, the first book was enough. Probably. I don't know if one book could be enough. But who would know that this could be so необходимо. It is необходимо. Необходимо. I wrote the second part of Hedi's story today. I'm feeling very bloodless. I'm falling in pieces. I will probably represent my own story in some time. properly now. This is the correcting reading of second part. Spinning Poi in swash zone, throwing his not-so-giant for a while ahead, the cat asked himself, "How can I make me understand why is this infatuation towards Котенок so important? How can I make me understand? It's a piece of cake for me to fall in love in the city of black cats, which are irresistible. I can do it easily in one date, but all my world wants Котенок's so much, wants to intermarry all his world. All of me wants all of him. My world kinda says it can't survive this love without releasing it. And my world's kinda offended and wonders why Котенок's doesn't respond to such a pious and poignant signal. How can I make me understand my signals are in vain? It's only my business if they are so, though. That's the only use of a giant hand." And he created another poignant signal in the swash zone, another heady prayer to be loved. Every corner of the universe, every tip of Tantra's net had the echo of his cry. Every corner of the universe, every tip of Tantra's net были достигнуты. Have been achieved. Были достигнуты. His head was as giant that it reached the canvas of skies and pulled it up. But he was okay, he wasn't scared to blow his head out. That's the only use of a giant head, to say it's desirous. Then one shall wait for the recall, which is always a wonder. Weeks passed over the apparition of the fountain angel, the giant head cat, which is actually a writer spent in writing. He was sending signals, sexual letters. Котенок was madly dedicated to his work and hadn't time and power for dating Hetty. And Newtham is a great city. If you don't know, you need to take a plane to get from one district of it to another. But Котенок didn't mind a correspondent. In his letters, Hetty was represented his world to Котенок for a chance he takes an interest in. Actually, the giant head cat let's call him Hedy below. Well, Hedy Cat had hard time in Newsom, even the hardest in his whole life. He went with just a tourist visa. He went in with just a tourist visa. He hadn't right to work in Newsom, but he had a nice camera and a style. So he found a cameraman's job in a local restaurant. He was promised nice money and did his best at this job easily. In this place. Because those shots weren't the hardest and most responsible in his career. The only thing that bothered him much at work was the music, loud and monotonous, as at some factory. It wore him out. It fucked him hard with no loop and fantasy. In spite of the brilliance of Hedy's work, he was all the time disrespected by his boss. But Hedy didn't care. Black cats were slaves of ginger cats for centuries, so in general relationships between races was not good. Times were changing, of course, but still you hardly find a ginger cat having a nice black friend or partner. But there were nice exceptions to this trend. Once cats were connected with good love, they created a strong interracial families. But on the level of simple friendship and business, relations were strained. And untrustworthy by default. You see, Black Newtham was colonized by Mewtham, Hedy's home great city, for 2 previous centuries, and it was a great struggle of black cats to get their independence. So Hedy wasn't surprised with disrespect at work. But he was, by some reason, sure he shall got his salary. You see, in the world of ginger cats, you can easily rely on words. They are rather spoken-word-oriented cats, pious creatures. They give the greatest authors. They provide. They provide the greatest authors of cat civilization. They write the longest novels. In general world is sacred for ginger, while blacks like to nigh. Nice cheating is a reason for a break among them. It was a day for them, nice cheating. I don't tell they are so dirty persons, but you can easily find gingers more pious in general than blacks that needed to survive doing dirty deeds for a long time due to gingers that built their poetic cities on gigantic lies and theft, so gigantic and that no black crook could understand. So it was a ginger karma to be fooled in Newtham, and Hedy was kinda ready. He wasn't ready to lose so many mint, is the name of cat's money. His visa was running out and he's going back home, or the continuance of his journey dependent on that mint. And so his self-respect and his growth. Every day brought another battle for salary, and Hedy every day had something interesting to tell to Kationak. Every day Hedi's hope and trying to get the money become more desperate, and he was enjoying writing on these dramatic passages happening to him. He was in pain, in despair. He was weak and rightless, and didn't know what to do, because direct conflicting with the boss could not make any help in the situation. But Hedi didn't really care about the mint and his future. He knew he is absolutely secure at his secure meta level, where everything is fine while the novel is being written. An ending. The ending is not predicted, even if you see omens of disaster in every chapter. The only thing Hedi really cared if Котенок carried. The only thing Hedi really cared is if Котенок carried of his stories. He only wanted to become interesting for Котенок. He just wanted his attention to get bigger. And what did Котенок write to him? First of all, his Malele tongue was brilliant. Котенок was newborn by black parents, but when he was an actual kitten, they have left it for a land of Malele, a big country founded by white cats, but so democratic, so cat of any color or even completely bald one lived there in peace and equal rights. Котенок came to Newton just for a vacation, and there and then he met Hedi. Hedi visited Malele in his kittenhood and spoke and wrote Malelean good, but with Котенok's letters, he all the time ought to find some new words in dictionary to comprehend. Within the story of his struggle at work, Hedi wrote a lot and straight, and with no hesitation on love. He fell to Котенок, and Котенok wasn't stupid. He saw it's just a poetry, and the poet Hedi knew that. Котенок taught him that Hedi cannot love him, as his love is too conventional or unconventional. And selfish. Let me quote his essay, and you shall understand that Котенок was really worthy, and Hedi love was really worthy. Anyone. You are conforming love to something too conventional. It doesn't matter that I don't say it. What matters more is how my actions reflect my intentions toward you. You are seeking extremes because you desire pain, which hopefully you are processing. Your blindness is not related to your love for me, because you don't actually see me, you only see the idea of me. You need to understand yourself first and understand the variation of love beyond the current limited view. Love is tested not in its climax, but in slow durations, in the prolonged comfort of it. Currently you only live in the illusion of hope it brings, which again means you cannot look past your pain to see me. As you said, your responses are like that of a teenager, but what about me? For me, it automatically means that to love you is to baby you, is to overindulge your negative state, which make you inept of growing. While also love acting as a kid, I recognize the difference, and as an adult I search for someone who is an equal. That's why I tell you, Your desires are selfish, but we are also most selfish and blind. We are in pain. I already understood this is where you are mentally and emotionally. So I help, but I cannot drown myself for you, because that would be the result of loving you. Unhealthy entanglement. If the pain doesn't help you grow up fast, you will always be helpless, you will always seek kindness externally. But it is something you must first give yourself. End of quote, loosely translated from Malayalam to English. They really were from different dimensions, as angelic cat, which you knew it was Hedi's consciousness, said to Hedi, their views on the mutual sum of the worlds, which is love, were different. Hedi wanted his feeling was considered in both worlds, and he grew his love. Like 7 times more than in the morning, he watched his eyebrows rustling in REM. Night after his watched own prayer, Hedi had a dream based on his dreams. There was Kationok hugging him, and then he turned out to be really a kitten, a newborn, so tiny, so helpless. He leaned on Hedi's chest, and Hedi gave him his arms, and it was the only thing he ever wanted, and he cried both sides of the dreaming. The tears were not beaten. They were sweet, and Kitten licked them from his eyes. They were tears of gratitude. Hedi's head was all right, didn't swollen. Headache was gone. Kitten licked his tears and became a fountain angel. Fabulous. But small. Fabulous, he murmured in Malayalam this time and purred. I was waiting him to give me some advice as last time by the fountain, but he fell asleep again and purred. So sweet. And purred so comfortably. Electrical. Thou art an antichrist in the world. Thou art a ghost lightning falling from above. Thou come hither just for a shining moment in the centuries and centuries of routine darkness of this world. Have you come just to say, I am fabulous when I lost all and have no hope? Kitten was asleep, and I answered for him with a pouring voice. Who said you were fabulous? But you shall know who you are. Then I kept silence for a while and continued. Your heart, Hedi, hanging there just as that kitten on posters with surface humor. Then I felt silly and silenced. Kitten Angel moved his ears, but it was a silence every direction. He opened one eye and looked at me. Hanging there indeed, baby. Follow your heart and head wherever. Be your heart and be your head. Let them be your wings, your passion and your reason. Isn't it time to try? Yuga approaches. Tiny winged kitten stood upon my chest. He ruffled his wings as some sparrow coughed off a hairball that was really cute. And saying, who are you, who are you, who are you? He raised in the air. You see, I'm just learning too. This repetition of who I use helps my wings to move. One day it was a great dare to start just moving it. But once one has them, one got to learn. Everybody's one's got to learn. The kitten flew onto my lap, and I sat down on the bed and began to feel my back. But I touched just skinny shoulder blade. I remembered Katyonik saying they were beautiful, well, I was always since my childhood. Since being the same skinny boy embarrassed with them. Kitten smiled. Not now. This time you lost them again, sorry. This time was the most painful, right? I hope you come in such pain no more. Who are you, who are you, who are you next time? Next time you feel them grow, spread them with who are yous. And there is one more thing. Don't let them use you at work next time, okay? And never break your own heart again. Okay, okay? I silenced it. Yes, he is the only one who liked your skinny shoulder blades. But you see, if someone loves your wings, this is healthier. It is for long. Katyonik cannot love you, but I cannot love him too. He wrote me whole essay that I cannot, but I do. He flew over and tried to sit upon my shoulder at some parrot upon parrot shoulder, but he slipped. Your shoulder is set and hunched, uncomfortable to sit upon. I beseech you to cheer up. I straightened my back. Kitten's lips were very close to my ear now. He sucked my earlobe for a while and then, now listen, he sat and sang into my very ear. It was so sweet and cute, like a Björk singing Malayalam, and the melody was like a sparkling jewel, always the same and never the same. I believe this song could finish a world war, an apocalypse itself once it was sung and heard in this world. And the war and apocalypse of my own world were over. Feels like I was levitating without any wings, hanging in with this harmony. Then I was awakened by your smile, Katyonik. Ой, не знаю, что-то мне уже не так нравится, как когда я только это написал.